Okay, so now we're going to talk about the informational picture book, which according to the Sarafini readings, it is a dying genre because facts and this kind of information is available through the internet, and all these are learning apps. So kids aren't really going to picture books to learn about animals or nonfiction topics anymore. But I found, oh, and then he also says that generally to make these books stand out, they come with like an additional perk, like a sensory section of them where kids can go in and touch textures and learn about what, like, for example, the skin of a dinosaur would have felt like, or the skin of a chicken would feel like because they have these feathers and everything. Or they have like sounds and um, more like a three-dimensional aspect of them to make them more appealing. But I found one book which is more of like a story, but it really does teach you all about the blue whale. So I would like to show it to you.
The Blue Whale. Once upon a time, a child took a book from a shelf and started to read.
Okay, so that's not very creative, but if we're think about a book that someone wants to read to learn about the blue whale, we wouldn't think that it would start out like this. We would just imagine that there'd be like a picture of a blue whale and there'd be like some text around it talking about how big it is and but this is more creative. It's more of like a story, and it's got um more of like a creative illustration, like we picture the child sitting on his bed with all his toys around him and they're all actually reading the story with him. So there's more we can talk about than just a blue whale, even though we're going to learn about her.
He read that the blue whale is a mammal of gigantic size and strength. It is the largest living creature on our planet.
So we can see how the illustrator was able to show the boat and the gigantic size of the whale in comparison to the boat and the little boy. So that's a really interesting composition.
A blue whale can measure up to 100 feet. That is the same length as a truck, a digger, a boat, a car, a bicycle, a motorcycle, a van, and a tractor, all lined up.
So I think this is the most creative part of the book because if we think about how we explain uh, to a child in terms of size, um, and we think about like this illustrator used items and images that the child is probably already a fan of, like trucks and tractor trailers and boats and motorcycles. I mean, these are vehicles, and especially my kids, both my little girl and my little boy, they love their toys and they love their trucks and their tractors and their motorcycles and their boats. I mean, they just love vehicles. So this is a good way to make them think in terms of what they are already excited about. Uh, so this is very creative. I love this part.
A blue whale's heart is the largest of any animal. It is as big as a small car and weighs about 1,300.
So it's also a smart way to help them understand the size of this whale. And if they can picture a car, which is probably something they travel in daily, we can then say, this car is the size of the heart of the whale. And they're going to be like, whoa, this is humongous. So that's,
pounds. Blue whales are grey, but they look bright blue underwater, which is how they got their name. Their skin color ranges from dark to light grey and is mottled like marble. It feels smooth, rubbery, and slippery to the touch. A blue whale's underbelly sometimes appears yellowish white. This happens when microorganisms called diatoms attach themselves to it. Every blue whale has unique markings similar to our fingerprints. Scientists use these along with the shape of the dorsal fin to identify individual whales. An average blue whale weighs about 160 tons, or about the same as a heap of 55 hippopotami. Females grow bigger and heavier than males. This is because the female cares for her baby on her own and needs to be big enough to produce enough milk to feed it.
Okay, so this is already another creative way to explain to a child with 160 tons, which does not sound very interesting to me or to probably a child. But if we think about how much kids love hippopotami, that if we can have them picture, if you stack 55 hippopotami, that would be the size of a blue whale, and they could probably understand that.
No land animal can be as big as a blue whale because no bone structure can be strong enough to support such colossal weight out of the water. The salt in seawater helps keep these huge whales buoyant. Seawater gives buoyancy to all other creatures too, like hippopotami and humans. A blue whale's eye is about 6 inches wide and has no tear glands or eyelashes. It is very small, considering 3 tons, and its
So,
mouth is so big that 50 people can stand inside it.
okay, so I mean, for a nonfiction book, there's parts of it where I could see, kids would get a little bored, because we're just giving them information, but they're learning about this animal. So, um, putting an image of these 50 people standing inside of the mouth is hilarious, and it's also a good way for them to get a perspective on the size.
Fortunately, blue whales don't eat people. Blue whales eat mostly krill, a tiny shrimp-like creature. During the summer months, they eat about 35 million krill each day, which is about 4 tons of food. But since they have narrow throats, they can swallow only a grapefruit-sized amount at one time. Blue whales eat different species of krill depending on the ocean in which they live. To eat, the blue whale takes a giant gulp of seawater and krill. It takes so much water into its mouth that the ventral pleats below its jaw and belly expand like a huge accordion. When the blue whale is ready to swallow, it pushes all the seawater back out of its mouth with its tongue through its bristly baleen plates. These plates catch the krill for the whale to swallow. Because krill are bright orange, so too is a whale's poo.
So I also wanted to point out in this illustration, we had examined picture books before, and remember if we talked about framing, and this illustrator uses negative space very well. I always envy illustrations that use negative space because I am always afraid of negative space and I want to put stuff and keep putting stuff on it. So I'm always inspired by these compositions where, the main image is really nicely framed by this negative space. So,
Blue whales don't Baby blue whales don't eat krill. They drink their mother's milk. A baby blue whale is called a calf and its mother a cow. The calf is in its mother's womb for almost a year and is about 20 feet long when it is born. It drinks nearly 50 gallons of its mother's milk every day and can gain as much as 9 pounds an hour. By 8 months, the calf will start to feed itself by eating krill.
so that was an interesting imagery. I think it was smart for the illustrator to put the 50 gallons of milk so that the kids have a good idea of how much milk you can actually take, where they would drink just a little bit from that gallon. They will eat that gallon 50 gallons every day. So that is a lot, and also helps them understand the size. And also, I won't make you guys watch the whole thing unless you want to eventually look on your own. But the other,
Eyes and are tiny little holes. Despite this, blue whales have excellent hearing. This is important because they have to be able to hear each other in the ocean across great distances. Their song is louder than a jet air engine and can be heard up to 1,000 miles away. They are one of the loudest animals in the world, but the frequency of their sound is so low for humans to hear it without the use of equipment.
okay, so I think this is also smart of the illustrator. Again, incorporating imagery that the children are already fan of, like airplanes and helicopters. I mean, my kids just go crazy over helicopters and airplanes. So just incorporating this imagery that really doesn't have anything to do with the blue whale, but he incorporates it and makes it to be a way to explain how loud the song is, you know. So he compares it to the jet engine, which can be heard up to 1,000 miles away. And then he draws these little cool airplanes, which the kids are gonna love when they see them, I'm sure. So that is the big difference between the wordless picture book, where imagination is more of the trigger behind it. We want conversation to come up and predictions, and we want the kids to come up with their own stories, where informational books are more about teaching kids about a specific topic. So in this case, it would be about the blue whale. And also, this book shows a creative way to show facts and information about a topic. So that's it for today. Thank you.